I've always been paranoid about ride-sharing apps. I'd double-check the license plate, the driver's photo, the estimated time, everything. But that night, after dinner with my friends, I just wanted to get home. It had been a long day, and the midnight chill was creeping through my thin jacket. When the car pulled up in front of me, I did a quick check and got in. The driver seemed normal. A man in his 40s, neatly trimmed beard, dress shirt. "Good evening," he said in a low, polite voice. I mumbled a response and sank into the seat. The ride started out fine, the city lights blurring past the windows as I scrolled absently through my phone. A few minutes later, I noticed he went off-route. The GPS still showed my address, so I tried not to freak out. Probably just a shortcut, I told myself, but something about him unsettled me. He drove too perfectly, no sudden stops, no hesitation. Yet there was a strange silence in the car, thick, almost calculated. When he finally spoke, his voice was too soft. "Traffic on the main road is awful at this hour. Better to take a detour." I just nodded, but the unease inside me grew. I tried opening the app to check the alternate route, but my screen froze. My connection dropped. That was weird enough, but what really made my stomach turn was when my hand reached for the door. The lock button was gone. I stared at the door panel, my pulse quickening. Maybe it was just a different model, one of those cars where the lock was in another place. I ran my fingers along the smooth surface, searching, but there was nothing, just an empty indentation where the button should have been. My mouth felt dry. I glanced at the driver in the mirror. His face was calm, focused on the road, but there was something off about the way his hands gripped the wheel, too still, too firm, like he wasn't really driving, just guiding. The GPS still showed my home address, but the streets outside didn't look familiar anymore. We weren't in the city. The buildings had given way to endless stretches of trees, their branches twisting unnaturally under the dim glow of the headlights. Fog crept along the road, thickening with every mile. I swallowed hard and forced my voice to stay even. "Where are we?" The driver didn't react at first, then gave a slow, almost rehearsed smile. "Shortcut," he said again, his voice softer this time, like he was trying to soothe a frightened animal. I tapped my screen again, trying to cancel the ride. Nothing. The app was frozen, completely unresponsive. I tried the door handle next, but it didn't budge. Panic prickled at my skin. I wasn't just imagining things, I was trapped. I pressed my back against the seat, trying to steady my breathing. My heartbeat was loud in my ears, drowning out the quiet hum of the engine. I forced myself to think, maybe the child lock was on. Maybe there was a way to force the door open. But every rational thought was smothered by the overwhelming wrongness of the situation. The road outside had changed, no signs, no streetlights, just a narrow, winding path swallowed by fog. I checked my phone again. No signal, no Wi-Fi. Just a flashing message on the ride-sharing app, searching for connection, over and over. I looked up at the rearview mirror, and that's when I saw it, his eyes. At first, they looked normal dark, focused on the road. But as he blinked, something shifted. For the briefest second, I thought I saw movement beneath his skin, like there was something underneath, pressing outward. My stomach lurched. My fingers dug into the seat. He hadn't blinked again. He was just staring straight ahead, his hands gripping the wheel in that unnerving stillness. I swallowed the scream rising in my throat. "Pull over," I said, my voice shaking. "I want to get out." He didn't answer. The car didn't slow down. And the fog outside was getting thicker, swirling like something alive. I reached for my seatbelt, my hands trembling. If I could just unbuckle and throw myself out, maybe I'd have a chance. But as I fumbled with the latch, the car lurched slightly, just enough to make me hesitate. The road had narrowed, and on either side, the trees loomed impossibly tall, their twisted branches forming a tunnel overhead. The headlights barely cut through the dense fog, which now swirled like thick smoke, shifting unnaturally, as if it were watching. I pressed my nails into my palm, trying to ground myself. "Pull over," I demanded again, louder this time. My voice sounded small in the suffocating silence. Finally, the driver spoke. "We're almost there." His voice had changed. It was still calm, still smooth, but there was something else beneath it now, something stretched and hollow, like an echo of itself. I could barely see his face in the mirror, but his mouth was curved into something that was almost a smile. My breathing came in shallow bursts. "Almost where?" My home address still flashed on the GPS, but I knew we weren't headed anywhere I recognized. I tried the door handle again, yanking it hard, but it didn't move. The window wouldn't roll down either. The panic fully set in then, hot and paralyzing. And outside, past the fog, I started seeing shapes. At first, I thought my mind was playing tricks on me. The fog was thick, shifting like liquid, but beyond it, something moved. Dark, elongated figures, too tall, too thin, gliding just beyond the reach of the headlights. My breath hitched as one of them turned, or maybe it never turned at all, just twisted itself inside out. It had no face, just a hollow absence where a face should be. My stomach knotted. I tore my gaze away and forced myself to look at the driver again. He wasn't looking at the road anymore. His head was tilted slightly, like he was listening to something I couldn't hear. I pressed my phone against my thigh, trying to steady my shaking hands. "Dial 911, the screen flickered, and for a split second, it wasn't my lock screen anymore. It was something else, symbols, jagged and pulsing, letters I didn't recognize, but somehow understood. My hands jerked, and the screen went black. The driver let out a slow, measured breath. "They remember you," he murmured, almost like he was talking to himself. My throat closed up. "Who?" My body screamed at me to run, to fight, to do anything, but the car felt like it was moving faster, even though the speedometer hadn't changed. The fog outside wasn't just thick, it was alive. I pressed my back against the seat, gripping the door handle with all my strength, even though I knew it wouldn't budge. My pulse pounded in my ears. The driver's words kept looping in my head. "They remember you." Who the hell was they? My whole body was screaming at me to do something, anything, but my limbs felt heavy, like I was sinking into the seat. The shapes outside the car were moving faster now, gliding through the mist, bending and twisting in ways that didn't make sense. The headlights barely illuminated them, but I could feel their presence, pressing in, waiting. Then the road ended. Not in a dead end or a sharp turn, it just stopped. 1 second, there was asphalt, and the next, only endless, pulsating darkness stretching out in front of us. It wasn't water, It wasn't land, it was nothing. The car kept moving. My body lurched forward, but the seatbelt held me in place. My breath caught in my throat. The fog swirled around us, and for the first time, I realized I wasn't looking through the windshield anymore. I was looking at something else, a place that shouldn't exist. A void where the sky and ground were the same, where distance meant nothing. And the worst part? The GPS still blinked, still marking my home as the destination. But I knew with every fiber of my being, this wasn't my home. I couldn't breathe. My fingers dug into the seat, my entire body tense as the car drifted forward, no longer on solid ground, but on something else. The headlights barely pierced the darkness, illuminating only swirling void and those things outside closer now. I couldn't make out their shapes fully, only that they were watching, waiting. The driver exhaled slowly, like he was savoring the moment. "It's been a long time," he murmured, his voice softer now, almost nostalgic. My stomach twisted. A long time since what? Since I was here? I didn't belong here. I knew that. And yet, a sickening feeling crawled up my spine. What if I did? The GPS still blinked, destination, home, as if mocking me. My own name was there, right at the top of the screen, but it looked wrong, warped. The letters shifted when I tried to focus. My vision blurred, and for a split second, I saw something else reflected on the screen, a house. My house, but not my house. The walls pulsed like breathing flesh. The windows stretched too wide, dark and gaping like hungry mouths. The door was open. Waiting. A jolt of pure terror shot through me. I forced myself to move, to fight, to do anything, but my body wasn't my own anymore. My hands trembled as I touched my face, tracing the outline of my skin. And then, in the reflection of the passenger window, I saw it. There were eyes beneath my skin. I choked on my own breath, my fingers frozen against my cheek. The reflection in the glass was wrong, so wrong. Beneath my skin, something shifted. The outline of my face was the same, but just below the surface, I saw them eyes. Not mine, others. Moving, blinking, watching. My stomach twisted violently. I jerked away from the window, my pulse hammering. This wasn't real. It couldn't be real. But when I looked at my hands, my arms, I could feel them, pressing, writhing, buried just beneath the surface. A muffled whimper escaped my throat. I clawed at my skin, panic overriding every other thought. I had to get them out. The driver let out a slow chuckle. "You're remembering now," he said, his voice rich with something I couldn't name. He wasn't looking at me anymore. His eyes were locked onto the horizon, except there was no horizon. Just endless, shifting dark. The car wasn't moving forward anymore. It was sinking. I could feel it, like being dragged down into something thick and endless. My ears popped. My lungs ached. My reflection in the windshield twisted, my features stretching and distorting, not because the glass was warped, but because I was. I tried to scream, but the sound that came out wasn't mine. It was layered, a chorus of voices I didn't recognize. The driver smiled wider, his teeth just a little too sharp. "Welcome home." I thrashed against the seat, every muscle in my body screaming for escape. This isn't happening. This isn't real. But the pain was real, the burning, twisting sensation beneath my skin, like something was clawing its way out. My fingers dug into my arms, but I couldn't stop it. My vision blurred, warping like a reflection in broken glass. The car wasn't a car anymore. The interior stretched, the dashboard melting into an endless expanse of shadow. The windows no longer showed the outside world, just shifting void, filled with things that shouldn't exist. My seatbelt tightened, constricting like a second spine wrapping around me. Then I saw at the house, or what was supposed to be my house. It stood alone in the nothingness, its walls rippling like living flesh. The windows pulsed, their darkness deeper than the void surrounding them. The front door creaked open, revealing only a gaping abyss. The GPS still blinked. Destination, home. My breath hitched. No, this isn't home. I fought against the seatbelt, the weight of something unseen pressing down on me, suffocating. The driver tilted his head slightly as if listening. His grin widened, stretching beyond what should have been possible. "It's time," he whispered. The car jolted, the door locks clicked open, and then the thing inside me started to crawl out. I felt it moving something beneath my skin, pushing outward, writhing. My body wasn't my own anymore. My fingers twitched uncontrollably. My breath hitched as pressure built inside my chest, like something was clawing its way up from deep inside me. I tried to fight it, but my limbs felt heavy, detached, like I was watching myself from a distance. My reflection in the window showed my face shifting, stretching, as if something else was trying to wear me. The car door swung open on its own, the seatbelt unlatching like unseen hands were guiding me forward. The driver didn't move. He just sat there, smiling, his eyes gleaming in the dim, unnatural glow of the house ahead. "Go on," he murmured, almost tenderly. My feet moved before I could stop them. The air outside was thick, pressing against my skin like a living thing. The house loomed before me, wrong in ways I couldn't put into words. The walls weren't wood or brick anymore, they pulsed, breathing in slow, sickening waves. The open door gaped like a mouth, waiting. And then I heard them whispers, voices overlapping, calling my name, not from inside the house, from inside me. I clamped my hands over my ears, but it didn't help. The whispers weren't coming from outside. They were inside my skull, curling around my thoughts, like fingers pressing deep into my brain. They knew me. They had always known me. My knees buckled, and I stumbled forward. The ground beneath my feet wasn't solid anymore. It shifted like wet sand, pulling me closer to the house. The driver stayed in the car, his smile frozen, his eyes dark and gleaming. He didn't need to follow. I already belonged here. I tried to resist, but my body wasn't my own. My hands stretched out, trembling, reaching for the doorframe. The air around me thickened, humming with something ancient and hungry. The voices inside me weren't speaking anymore. They were laughing. My breath hitched as I stepped inside. The darkness swallowed me whole. There was no floor beneath my feet, no walls around me, just a vast, endless nothing. And in that nothing, I saw them. Shapes shifting, writhing, twisting in impossible ways. Not human. Not even close. They had been waiting. I felt my own body dissolving, unraveling like thread, the thing inside me finally breaking free. And in my last fleeting moment of consciousness, I understood. I had never escaped. I had only come back home